Hi everyone, welcome to Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is all about polynomials and their operations. Did you watch the Superbase video that I left in this playlist? It gives a lot of great information about exponent rules, and it is pretty funny. It's humorous, and that can actually help you to remember the concepts. So if you didn't watch that, make sure you watch that video, at least a little bit of it. Because exponent rules can seem very tedious, but they will allow us to perform operations on polynomials for the rest of this chapter. In 5.1, our first section here is on exponents. By the end of this section, we should be able to evaluate exponential expressions, use the product rule for exponents, use the power rule for exponents, use the power rule for a product or quotient, use the quotient rule for exponents, and define a number raised to the 0th power, which is my favorite. Finally, decide which of these rules we need to simplify expression. So exponents are natural numbers. Remember, those are the counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're shorthand notation for repeated multiplication. So 3 to the 4th power is the number 3 multiplied, right? Multiplication 4 times. Okay. So we can multiply these in any order that we want. Let's say we multiply 3 times 3 times another 3 times 3. So that's going to be 9 times 9, which is 81. So what tells us to multiply what factor how many times? That would be the base is the number factor that's going to be multiplied. And the exponent tells us how many times to multiply that factor by itself. And another word for exponent is power. You can use either of those words to say the same thing. And note by the order of operations, where does exponents come here? Exponents come before all the other operations. So let's evaluate some exponential expressions. So the base here is what the exponent is touching. So this superscript 2 is touching the parenthesis, right? So the parenthesis is the base, everything in the parenthesis. So this tells us to multiply negative 5 times itself 2 times. Well, 5 times 5 is 25. Same sign, so positive. Our second example, negative 6 squared. So this exponent is touching just the 6. So 6 multiplied by itself 2 times. And what about the negative in front? Well, the negative stays in front. So we have negative, and 6 times 6 is 36, which would be positive, but the negative in front makes this a negative product here. For our third example, the 3 exponent is touching the parenthesis, so everything in the parenthesis is the base. We're going to multiply that 3 times. So multiplication, it's commutative, associative. I can multiply any order. Let's say I just multiply 8 times 8 times another 8. So 8 times 8 is 64, and then we're just going to multiply by another factor of 8. So that's going to be 512. In the last example here, the exponent is touching the 4, right? So 4 is multiplied by itself twice. What about the 3 times in front? It stays there, right? So we've got multiplication, can be done in any order. Let's just say left to right. So 3 times 4 is 12, times 4 is 48. So those are the values of the expression. And evaluate, remember, just means get a value for. So these are the values. Now we want to evaluate some algebraic expressions where we have variables, but we're given the value of the variable. So our first example, find 3x squared when x is 5. So instead of x, we're going to put 5. And remember, when you insert a number for a variable or any value for another value, then you want to put parentheses around it, just to make sure that you're not going to ruin any of the order of operations that were already in place. So we've got multiplication and exponent. We're going to need to do the exponent first. So 5 is the base times itself, 2 factors. And 5 times 5 is 25. So what if I do that multiplication first, and then 3 times 25 is 75. Then our next example, negative 2x squared when x is negative 1. So I'm going to put negative 1 in for x. Okay, then I need to simplify this in the order of operations. Exponents comes first. So everything else stays the same. I'm going to multiply negative 1 times another factor of negative 1. Okay. So negative 1 times negative 1, that's 1, same sign, positive. And negative 2 times 1 is just negative 2. Those are the values for the expressions given the number for x. So in the next videos, we're going to learn all of those exponent rules that we mentioned and when to apply them.